and welcome to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast, where I explore the world of neurodiversity and musicianship. I'm your host, John Hart, and today I'll be joined by Becky Langan, who is a wonderful percussive fingerstyle guitarist who has released numerous wonderful pieces, including her latest debut album, and has reached the semi-final of Guitar Star, where she was mentored by George Benson, Wilko Johnson, Jon Gomm, and Preston Reed. In this episode, we delve into Becky's journey of late diagnosis with ADHD and autism. So this was a long one, it was completely unmasked, and we just allowed the conversation to flow wherever it needed to, including several side quests. It's probably the most AuDHD conversation I've ever had with anyone, and it was an absolute joy. So let's dive in to that conversation. Hey Becky, how you doing?
Hi, I'm not bad, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. We've known each other for a while, and I've obviously could introduce you, but I'd prefer you to introduce yourself to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast, if you're up for that.
So my name is Becky Langan. I've played guitar since I was 11. I'm 31 now. So I've been doing this professionally for about 13 years. And we met at the London Acoustic Guitar Show, didn't we? Was it
2014? I think
2014? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm late diagnosed autistic. I could potentially have ADHD as well, which to me is quite obvious that I do. So yeah.
Amazing. So with your journey, this episode I was thinking, like, obviously late diagnosis. We've both gone through late diagnosis, and it's interesting. I was told I had ADHD and autism back in late 2021, and I was like, I thought it was something else. I thought it was bipolar or something. I didn't know what was going on until they said this, and I think until it came on my radar, then I was like, well, what the fuck is ADHD and autism in, like, related to me? Because I thought it was just naughty. What this kind of view that the rest of the world have is this kind of I don't know, naughty, fidgety little boy that you have in school and stuff as well. And then, it's just a quick realization. I was like, oh my word, the awareness, and a kind of sort of when you're reading all the traits, I don't know if you felt like it, but it felt like a checklist of my whole life.
Yeah, and it's really weird. You're almost like grieving like every past experience and connecting dots, and you kind of generate more compassion, for your past self, which is a really nice thing. And I think like finding out I was autistic was kind of part of my journey of, I'd guess, well-being, like everything just kind of makes sense. And like, maybe something you can relate to is not being great with like messages or something like that, or maybe canceling on plans and things like that. But when you have that diagnosis, it's almost like a pass, and people who don't understand aren't meant to be in your life. And then you kind of generate this group of people. I don't know.
Communication in general. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's tech, whether it's speaking, social cues, kind of figuring it out. I mean, did you, before you got diagnosed, was it an inkling, or did someone tell you, or did you have an inkling like years before, or when it came on the radar of this kind of, because obviously it's been flaring up a lot now, and it's like millennials of like pre-internet, post-internet. This feels like pre sort of neurodivergent awareness, and post, like the education. Obviously there's TikTok and all sorts of other stuff as well, but did you have a sort of an inkling when you started looking into it? And then obviously we have to put in for the diagnosis and the assessments, which take freaking months or years and stuff. What was that process? How was that journey?
So I went through the route of like, am I bipolar? Things like that. ADHD never crossed my mind. Again, I'm not diagnosed, but I think self-diagnosis is pretty reliable,
Fallible. Yeah.
Yeah. And like when I was a kid, I used to bring in my pet stick insect, and I was like, why has no one else got pet bugs? Like, and I set up a stall in the playground selling stick insect eggs. Um, so I had this
Mm.
like like very weird. I've always been very strange and quirky, and I've always been amazed by the natural kingdom. Like I've always just been fascinated by nature completely. Um, and I guess like looking back, it's kind of obvious. But to me, what really kind of stood out in terms of my behavior, to be like, I need help, was the pandemic. Um, just like every kind of what I would consider toxic, behavior coming out, and having to kind of like understand myself, but also generate compassion for myself so I can rebuild myself for who I actually am.
Mm. and
Yeah,
and that finding out, did you got diagnosed in your 30s, is that right?
31, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so I
very recently, only like 2 months ago.
right. So yeah, I was 38, and so it's the same sort of thing of then going 30 years of your life, that they call it, actually someone called it grief and relief, so it was like relief, and you're like, oh wow, like I can't believe that's, of course, I spoke to my wife about it, and we've been together for 18 years, and she was like, the penny dropped, of course you do. But
Yeah.
then there's the grief that you're going back and you're going, every single event, every moment, like you're talking about there, like it is a real sacred moment of selling things like or doing things like that. But you're like,
Yeah.
you're tying it. Oh, but was it, was that this and stuff as well, and
Mm,
sort of second guessing, third guessing everything as well, and to be able to do it, over 30 years, or how many years it is and stuff as well. I
yeah.
mean, we ruminate, as that's, I think that's the thing with ADHD and autism. Anyway, you can have a special subject, specifically, obviously, with autism, and I know we're both fellow fingerstyle guitarists, and the thing is, though,
Yeah.
to be able to get to that ability, again, I'm not going to I'm not going to wash it across the whole fingerstyle guitar community, but there is this sense of like, as a special interest, to be able to get to that ability, to be able to get to that scrutinizing kind of level
Yeah.
where you're focusing, like, I don't know whether it's percussion or whatever it is and stuff, and you're focusing on a snare drum for like forever and ever and ever, trying to get this specific sound. There's elements of that where I go, okay, that felt like my special interest for years and years and years. Music was, until now I've had these neurodivergent sort of diagnoses. This has now become my special interest, which is
Yeah.
why I wanted to sort of merge two worlds together, because I have connected with other ADHD and autistic folk, but when I start talking about music, there feels like a disconnect there, and I was like, how do I get the world where two of us can, we can speak about music, we can
Yeah.
speak about things. Um, so I suppose going into the late diagnosis, because I saw some of your social posts, and it felt very familiar, of that kind of like, it in your bones.
Yeah.
And this is a lot of people, like, whether they should go and get a diagnosis or not, and things as well. But how did you find that? Because self-diagnosis, is valid, and especially with the waiting list and everything as well.
Mm.
Maybe the question is, why did you seek diagnosis?
Um,
I don't know if you've been asked that before, or like
because
it's just an open. I've had it asked by
yeah,
a few people.
I haven't really thought about it. I think it was more so I could like so basically when I found out I was autistic, I started like looking for community groups and stuff on Facebook and things like that. And I was like, I just really connected with everyone, and it was just so nice, like, just to find this group of aliens. I don't know, for me it was the community aspect, and I know that you can have the community aspect without diagnosis. So I guess part of it was just to kind of have it like officially written down, so people who don't believe in self-diagnosis see it, because I mean, you can say like I'm autistic, and some people might be like, well, you haven't had an official diagnosis, but they just don't
Yeah.
understand. Like they just don't understand. They don't get it. It's just lack of understanding. That's all it is. And obviously, I understand that. I said that word many times,
That's
but
right.
it's a good word, isn't it? But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer?
No, I think it sounds, I had the same thing where it was debating for a while, and I'm like, oh, do I, don't I, like, and I had that kind of backlash from sort of certain people who are like, well, no, you can't say that, Jon, because you don't have the, and I was like, right, one, who am I doing this for? Like, am I doing it for them, or doing it for me, or like, and all that other stuff as well. But then you're right. There's always this. If I don't, then I'm always going to be questioning myself.
Yeah, there's always a 1% thing in your
Yeah,
brain where you're
a
like,
niggle, and you're like, am I just making this all up? Am I just like you then start talking about those kind of self-critical behaviors and stuff that I had for years. It was just like, oh no, you're just being an idiot. No, you're just being
yeah,
lazy. No, da 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 da.
yeah,
It's just because of COVID. You just that is all of those narratives that kind of
yeah,
played into it. I had someone the other day say, oh, the reason why so many people have got ADHD now is because of social media. And I was like, right, okay. And also the reason it is because of COVID. I'm like, right, I get there's maybe vehicles of acceleration, right? Of COVID, if you went in there with a mental crack and stuff, we've been coping for years and like just getting by, surviving, wherever it is and stuff as well. You throw a pandemic in there and stuff as well, like all your
yeah,
tools go out the window, everything goes out the window, routine goes out the window,
yeah,
like everything else. I mean, obviously, it could have been an introvert's dream, but if you're not earning, if you're not doing this, if you're not gigging, you're not doing what you naturally do, then shit is going to hit the fan. Things are going to
yeah.
come to the surface. And it sounds like us, that's what's happened
I
for
think
both of us.
definitely. I think I've solved it. I think the reason we're both autistic is because we had the vaccine.
Yeah, there it is. There it is, and all, and
I
my
I love
BC,
that.
my BCG from when I was at school, that's added to it, and everything, like that whatever it is, it's, I think the hardest reality of that is like knowing it's been there,
Yeah.
underlining our whole life.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know if Ellie Middleton, I know we've shared like things online and stuff as well, and she's shared videos and stuff, but her book, and which I recently shared with you, Unmasked, she talks about it being the lost generation, these late
Yeah.
diagnosis, because it's I'm trying to, like, I can't blame an old generation. I can't blame folks, whatever and stuff as well. No one, no one knew or whatever it is and stuff as well. At the same, because now the awareness and education is just like so accessible. And obviously, like you're talking about these communities and stuff as well. You kind of, the feeling when you go and connect with someone else who's autistic, or like that community, there is a sense of like, for fuck's sake, where has this been? Where has this been where you can just unmask and just you can talk jabber, you can go off on whatever you like, you can have these special subjects where, because musicians can be quite cliquey. We know when
Yeah.
a group of musicians come together and there's an outsider who comes in and go, oh my days, I don't understand what any of you lot are saying. And,
Yeah.
and that's the musician. You go into the fingerstyle community, we get even cliquier and like talking about whatever it is. Like if we start talking about alternate tunings and open tunings, like we go to whatever it is, or like string gauges, and then we start talking about gear and specific things, and I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is another sort of deep conversation. But I now know when I speak with someone with ADHD, the conversation I have there, and then I speak with someone with autism, I've started to realize, because I've got ADHD, autism, and there's dyslexia there as well, how it's very slow, but I feel like they're siblings in some way. They're
Yeah.
siblings inside my head. And then it's almost like the autistic one's telling the ADHD one to pipe down, and then the ADHD one's just like, oh, you're too serious. Da, da, da. And it's like,
Yeah.
if I told this to someone else, it's like Gollum and Smeagol. I'm like, it's not, that kind of psychological, but I could only discuss this with other neurodivergent people.
Yeah. I'm really curious to know, how does dyslexia affect you? Because I don't have dyslexia, so I don't really know much about it.
So it's more obviously the premise of this dyscalculia, obviously with numbers, dyslexia with words and things.
Mm.
It affected how I could read music without a doubt. I mean, I
Okay.
know there's a tendency, obviously, guitarists, we then go straight to tab and all that sort of stuff as well. But there
Yeah.
is it affected me. So I got diagnosed when I was at uni,
Mm.
and it was more struggling to read, struggling to process some words like letters back to front, and all that other stuff as well. So spelling and grammar have always been tricky, but the greatest thing now with the likes of like Grammarly or ChatGPT or whatever it is, you read my really relaxed texts or emails and stuff, and there's holes all the way through it. There's like words that are missing all the time. Um, and then I just put it into ChatGPT to say, please
Yeah, yeah.
revise. And then it does it. And then I can send it
Okay.
out. Never had those tools before. And this is
Mm.
what got me thinking. I'm like, if there was such tools for ADHD and autism, there are certain things, AI, and you can help you out and stuff as well. But that's how I've got around it now. That can be seen as the weaknesses, but the strength of it is creative problem solving.
Right.
So if there's a problem, most of the time you can use logic. I don't really have logic to figure it out most of the time. So I've got to try and find a creative way around it, which takes up a lot of bandwidth, obviously,
Right.
because you're not going linear, binary kind of, right, that's
Mm.
the answer. I have to go, I can't go straight there. I have to go around this point to get there. So,
Yeah.
but but this is where a lot of the detective work and a lot of sort of self-awareness, and it's very personal. So what I feel is dyslexia, ADHD, and autism might be completely different with someone else. And this is the other theory that I don't know how you relate with this, but how ADHD autism is like, it's not your identity, your characteristics, or who you are at your core,
Mm.
authenticity. I was told by a clinical psychologist, it's almost like we have a lens. It's almost like we have these goggles on or lens around us. So we try to process information from our center, and then it gets filtered through ADHD, autism, and dyslexia to the outside world.
Right.
Really fascinating when you
That's
start to dive
cool.
into certain things as well. But what it means is every ADHD person you meet, that they have the characteristics and traits, but they are different people because they've got
Yeah.
different centers, such.
So how do
Um,
you think? Do you think in because there's this thing that I found so fascinating. Some people literally cannot visualize things in the brain. Whereas for me, it's almost like a silent film constantly. Like I visually see things, but
I'm a
not
visual.
obviously like
Yeah.
in front of me, but like yeah, like say my brother, he I mean I think he's on the spectrum, but he's really logical and
Right.
he thinks in words, like, and he can't visualize things. It's so interesting how everyone's brain's so different.
It's I see it. I am a visual learner. I'm
Yeah, me
without a
too.
doubt. I've got someone who works for me as a support worker, and and he's also neurodivergent, and he's learned over the 9 months of working alongside me that if he sends anything text based, it's just like it comes up as a document. I'm like, no, it's gone. Can't take this in. Sends,
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm not a child, but like, you send me a nice, pretty diagram of colors and everything as well and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, got it
yeah,
straight away. And
yeah, me
it's just
too.
it's color before text, and it's image before text, and it's there's nothing against the text. I can read a Kindle or wherever it is if the text is massive, and I do it in short spells and things as well. But my mate and I were discussing the other day about like creative intelligence and creative ways, and we were thinking about like computer game characters or like Mario Kart or whatever it is and stuff. And there's attributes of these different characters. So say for instance, you had creativity, you had logic, you had this and this. And if we had 100 points that we could distribute across all of those,
Yeah,
a lot of people, maybe neurotypicals or most people, will distribute them evenly, 25% maybe, on each area, but doesn't really mean they've got a special peak as such. I feel 80%, probably 80 points is at creativity, and then 20 points is like distributed over logic and something else and stuff, which is why
Yeah.
I suffer in so many other areas of life. But
Mm.
get me in a creative setting, visualizing ideas. I kind of sort of think if you had a block of logs in the fire, I would be the match that would light the logs, but I'm not someone who maintains the fire, puts the logs up and stuff as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
It's
that makes
kind of like the
sense.
creative spark rather than the, which is a massive strength in itself, because those people who are building and maintaining, uh, they they are your logic, they are engineers or whatever it is and stuff as well. But you need your architect or whatever it is before. I think it's architect,
Yeah,
or you need your creative designer, whatever it is, to be able to draw out all the blueprints and the ideas and
yeah,
stuff. And I suppose that's how I see in certain areas of life and stuff as well. I mean, we have a family, obviously we have 2 kids, and we're trying to figure out that, and we're going down neurodivergent channels of that and seeing my daughter,
oh,
and like it's hereditary sort of side. When you were talking like maybe about your brother and like and my daughter, and I don't know about our son yet, but there's that kind of channel where you're going, shit, that this doesn't just start or end with me, this ripples out, which
yeah,
is why I was like, I could keep this all to myself and try and live my life my own. But there's been a burning desire now to do this, is to
mm,
communicate with other neurodivergents, another neurodivergent musician specifically, build a community, so we can go to and just chat about all kinds of shit, but related to these two things.
yeah. I have
Um,
listened to a few of your episodes.
right.
I'm loving it. It's amazing, and I love how you're so open as well. Like,
I think the candid side, because I was like, I could go serious. Actually, if you listen to the first half, it's insights, the red section, you could tell my voice is very like, okay, I'm reading from something. But the improvised session in the middle is I call it, they're like a traffic light system. So red and amber
yeah,
and green. The amber section is where I just actually was talking therapy for myself. When I was
yeah,
talking into this, I was just offloading, verbally expressing and stuff as well. And they were solo episodes, but I'm like, I'm really starting to shift towards conversations now, because obviously I've got my own perspective, my own sort of perception and stuff as well. But hearing your story, because I've been,
mm,
as friends and stuff, and we don't. I mean, I can't remember the last time we actually saw each other in person. That was up in Manchester, I think. And that
yeah.
was,
Oh, yeah.
when was that? Was
Manchester
that
Guitar Night.
pre-COVID?
That was pre-COVID,
Which
just
is
before.
nuts, right?
Yeah, like the pandemic thing was just weird. Like it
Well, it's
kind of
just a
felt
blip
like,
in time that we're
yeah,
always gonna go, oh yeah, no, yeah. And like, actually, it's weird to think now. It's like we're now. I've just realized I'm making markers of pre-COVID and post-COVID. So it's obviously
yeah,
an event where we go, um, that I don't know, in like the whole lifetime. I don't know whether I'll still be calling it in 20 years. I'll be like, oh yeah, that was pre-COVID and post-COVID or
yeah. It's
whatever it
like
is.
different sections of
It's,
your life,
yeah,
isn't it? It's
it's
so
just it's,
bizarre.
it's, it's strange. So how, I mean, you said it, obviously it's been a couple months, and you're obviously waiting. Are you waiting for an ADHD assessment? Is that right? You
Yeah.
well?
So, I waited like 4 years or something, maybe three
Jesus.
years. So what happened was, I was waiting a few years, and then the company went bust, and I had to start again for the assessments. So I was just waiting so long. That's why I was
Oh.
just like, well, I'm obviously autistic. Come on, guys. But so my sister got diagnosed with ADHD. And me and my sister are so similar, but she's not as introverted. I'm like an extroverted introvert. So like I can come across as extroverted, but people don't see me in between, sat in a dark room,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
completely cutting off all senses. Sometimes I can't even listen to music because it's too much. So I listen to a lot of I really like chill step music, for that
Yeah,
time,
right.
like when I'm really kind of but yeah, so yeah, I am still waiting for the ADHD thing. But I mean, I've spent some time, like reading into it, and it just kind of makes sense. Like I have like insomnia and stuff like that. I've always got trains of thoughts going. And
Because
I do have like,
there's the inattentive and the hyperactive. I mean, I've got combined that I've
yeah.
worked out and stuff as well, but it's not hyperactive in. Actually, when I was younger, it was physical hyperactive.
Mm,
So I was that, if you want to, like the kind of cliche. What when I speak to the older generation, they're like, oh, it's that kind of character. They pinpoint it on this one thing. So I probably was that sort of case, and no one, somehow they didn't pick up on it. But and now obviously that physical energy is channeled up internally up to my brain, so no one can
yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
But then there's the inattentive, which sounds probably, I don't know, that sounds more familiar with the inattentive side
Like
of ADHD.
I'm kind of like you know how you said like the stereotype is like that kind of naughty boy, like fidgety naughty boy. I was actually the opposite. I was like I was just daydreaming all the
Yeah,
time,
that's
just
the
like
inattentive.
staring at
Yeah, yeah.
leaves and stuff. Like I was like, wow, look at the structure on this leaf. You know, like I was just so I really love just like observing things and just like looking around, and I've always been more like that, to be honest. So I guess that would make sense with the
And
inattentive thing.
have you, so since because I was releasing content recently, which was like, right, this is a subject, this is how my ADHD affects it, this is how my autism, this is how my dyslexia, because I was like, I don't want to pinpoint at one area, because someone was telling me I think the primary driver is ADHD, and then there's autism and dyslexia. But I was like, I
Mm,
think they all play out in some way, in some shape or form. So I kind of didn't want to, move on. Have you, I mean, the 3 years, that's like a degree, right? An
mm,
unofficial degree in what you've doing. And it's the strange, the funniest thing is, whether it's fun or not, I mean, but you'll go to a doctor or you'll go to these psychiatrists, you'll know more. I kind of know, I was like, I went to some therapists and stuff like, I'm like, I know more than what you do, because I've like the ADHD does the ADHD hyper
yeah.
focus thing, and autistic as well, when it's a special interest. If you've got your autistic special interest, where
Mm,
if you're looking at leaves and you're looking at all the kind of, it's like a magnifying glass. You
yeah.
do it on this subject, and then your ADHD hyper focuses at the same time, where it just, you've got those
Yeah.
two together. It becomes like, and I don't know if you're doing this, but I know I went into every book, every podcast, every
Yeah. Yeah.
video,
I still
every
do.
community, right? And
I'm
it's never
obsessed.
ending. Well, I think the obsession is, you'll read it once, but
Mm,
you will learn so much. It's like guitar. It's like fingerstyle guitar. We get when
yeah.
we go through cycles. I think. I mean, I've been doing it, playing guitar for sort of 30 years. No, what is it? 32 years. But it wasn't fingerstyle until like 20s, when Annie McKee dropped drifting on YouTube. This is when YouTube started. It was like,
That's
it
exactly
was like
the
the top
moment
three video. Right.
that's the exact moment I discovered fingerstyle.
And this, I don't, again, I don't know if this is a neurodivergent thing, but the way I got, actually, before I got into it, and this I look back now as such an ADHD moment. I don't know if you've had this with music and guitar. Before I found out of Annie McKee, I bought a nylon guitar for 20 quid, and I turned it over and I carved a hole at the back of this. It's sacrilege, I get it, but it carved a hole at this back of this secondhand nylon, and I put a
No.
snare drum in the back of it, and then I used it for my guitar recital during university, which was 2004. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to play a little solo. And then I turn it over and do a drum solo. And all the clips of the snare drum started pinging off halfway through this performance,
Oh,
hitting the bandmates. And then it turned into whoopee cushion. And then I went to my lecturer's office the next day, and I was like, I knew that was shit. And then it was a sliding doors moment of, I either give this up, or
yeah.
I'm going to look into. And then the next day, it was like, I saw fingers. There was like, Annie McKee's video came up. There was fingerstyle. And I was like, why am I not doing that? But it must have been,
Mm,
it was a moment that I wanted to go into fingerstyle, but I did it a really, I don't know, ADHD experimental way. So it wasn't influences. It was more experimentation or whatever it is and stuff as well. And
yeah.
did you find obviously that was entering into fingerstyle and trying to figure out the way. And then I added vocals, and then I was like, oh, it's Newton, and there's John. Where have these guys been and stuff as well? Learning along the channels, and obviously Newton dropped Teardrop, and then John dropped Passion Flower, and it was just like, okay, the fingerstyle sort of singer songwriter thing. I was like, right, that's it. There's only a handful of guys, but that's the window to drop into. But
Yeah.
And then in the ADHD and autism went just with special interest. How did you find it combining it with that kind of do you look back now on your fingerstyle journey with any of that, and with neurodiversity and how that played out and stuff as well? Or have you
Yeah, I like so for me, I was never a singer. So I just wasn't getting enough from the guitar. Like I was just kind of getting bored, and I guess that's kind of the ADHD probably, where I'm just looking for new things all the time. Um and I've always loved just like challenging myself. Um and like I tuned my guitar to Dadgad. I had no idea this open tuning thing even existed. And I was like, wow, that sounds so much better. And because I didn't study music. I'm not trained in theory. Have a research master's in animal behavior. So it
right?
was just a completely different thing. But I forgot what I was saying now. My brain went blank.
But with
What
your
was I saying?
we were
Oh,
fingerstyle guitar, and yeah, neurodivergent
do you
traits or
get
whatever it
brain
is and stuff.
blank?
Yeah. Well, that's where, yeah, without a doubt, it's almost like working memory has just gone. Okay, I've
Yeah,
gone, and it happens in so many
yeah.
conversations. So it's so relatable.
But yeah, so like I'm just trying to remember what I was saying. Can we cut that bit out?
No. This
Oh
this
damn
is
it.
this is it. This is part of
God,
this. This is the
God,
this is the beauty of it.
God damn it, John. No. um,
This is
um
where this is where anyone with neurodivergent traits and stuff will listen and go,
yeah,
that's the relatable thing. That's where we go. We stop wherever it
no.
is and stuff as well. So you said about Dagad.
Yeah.
You said about open tunings and things as well.
Mm.
Is that, I don't know, did that take it to another dimension?
Well, I started learning drifting and I wasn't
Okay.
technically good enough for drifting at all. It sounded absolutely horrific, like awful. Um, like this is the first time I started doing the percussion and stuff on the guitar. And yeah, it just kind of like I just stuck with that. So like I never learnt theory, and I found that open tunings allowed me to be more creative. I don't like labels and like rules, and I'd much rather just look at the fretboard, see a pattern, and just kind of like work my way around that pattern. And if something doesn't sound good, then I remember that pattern of not to do that note
Mm,
with that note.
mm.
And that's how I built up, my composition skills. Um, but I guess theory just more allows you to communicate with other musicians more than anything. Um,
Yeah, there's what I like about that is because you can go so heavy in so many different areas. I know people who've gone theory and stuff as well, and then they're like improvisation or creativity, like it's just not there. And maybe that's maybe the classical, musician, where you got theory and then you go and you read the manuscript and you turn up and you do what's on the sheet and things as well. But
mm,
ask them to go and improvise and then compose and stuff as well. It's just like it's basically the other side of the brain, it feels like.
yeah.
So where you're coming from, it feels, and I know with open and alternate tunings, they are canvases that are wider. They got a wider
Mm,
range, a thicker tapestry that you can kind of play around with. And the beauty, because I know standing, I go in there, I know the shapes, and I spoke to another guitarist about it. I was like, mate, I reckon you're in like working mode when you're in that, when you're in standard. And I've got nothing
yeah.
against standard. I play it, I've sometimes come up with stuff. But I want you now to move to an open alternate tuning where you don't know the shapes, you don't know where everything is. You might, figure out a few things. And I call that guitar therapy. I go to these
Mm,
canvases to be able to, it's like an artist. You just turn up with paint and you go, I'm not going to think about Picasso. I'm not going to think about all these greats and the
Mm.
techniques and the brushes. I've got this fresh canvas right here, and I can just paint whatever it is. And do you feel like sometimes it's almost like, I mean, I love Lego. I love Lego building, right? And my son does as well. And it's just like
That's
when we get to
cool.
the mode, and you can buy a model if you want to. You get the instructions. That's what
Yeah.
feels like standard. I love it. Yeah, I can do that and stuff as well. But when you get to there and you go, do you know what? I'm just going to build whatever's in front of me and do and figure it out and stuff. Do you feel like once you've kind of put one brick down and you figure out there's a little tiny idea, um, how do you work with that idea? The little seed idea that comes up.
So sometimes I go through periods of time of just not playing guitar. And I've learned that that's absolutely okay because I'm
Mm,
balancing other
mm,
aspects of my life in order to build that energy to create. And usually, like something happens, like it might be like a segment of my life, almost like a chapter. Then I'll just get this like huge thing of like inspiration. Like it's like I just can't stop it, and I feel agitated if I don't pick up my guitar. And I'll have periods of just being so creative, and I just build on layers and ideas. And what I tend to do is just record on my phone an idea, and I go back to it and build it. And sometimes I can't finish tracks, and it's because I'm not in that energetic headspace for that particular emotion. So depending on my emotional state, I usually write two tracks at once. I
right.
switch during my writing periods anyway, and I'll switch between them. Um, so, like if I'm in like a really just like kind of playful, just happy mood, it's like the idea of playing like a minor track is just a bit like, ooh, that feels a bit aggressive. Um, so yeah, it's like an energetic thing. And I also feel that to build that creative power, I do that through nutrition and just exercise. And I've noticed a state in my mindset with and without it because I've lived both lives.
Mm,
And for me it's just life just so much easier when you're sober and just feel healthy,
mm-hmm,
like it really is, like, and believe me, I've lived both sides.
mm-hmm.
So
This is, yeah.
I've, yeah. And after I kind of like built myself up, like, which is probably the past few months, I really focused on my health, because I was like gigging and stuff like that. So it's like I felt like I needed more time to build myself up rather than compose. So it's about learning that balancing aspect, um, and just really tuning in to your feelings and what you need in that very moment. So like with ADHD and autism, it's quite common to have, like substance addictions and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So maybe you'd be like, just have a vape of an e-cigarette or just something like that, and you get a quick dopamine hit. And over time, you just kind of you don't feel happiness in normal things anymore, and you have to completely cut out these quick dopamine hits to gain them naturally again. And it takes a very long time, but I feel like I've got to the point where I'm getting these dopamine hits naturally, and I'm genuinely enjoying being alive without anything and just being myself. It's really nice, and it took me a long time to get there, and that's what's really powered my creativity.
I it sounds like there's, I mean, there's synergy as well, and there's kind of, I mean, that awareness. I mean, I imagine for years, and I don't know if you relate as well. It's just like I had no awareness, I had no education. I
Mm,
always, there was also like, and this has been my fascination. I've got an ADHD coach who works in the music industry. It's really specific, but anyway, he um he did a study, I think, over in the US, I think with Billboard and things as well. And I've been going along this track of, there's a stat within Musicians Union and Help Musicians UK that 80% of musicians have mental health issues. And this
mm,
could, and I had depression and anxiety for years of this, and this is self-diagnosed and things. But that I've realized they're comorbidities, co-conditions of ADHD and autism. If I didn't have them managed, this is not necessarily meds. This is physical and mental well-being, keeping healthy and stuff, to be able to keep on top of these traits. And all those other behaviors, this is the theory of this, drugs and alcohol within the music industry is rife. This it's been going for decades and decades and decades. And I'm like, why is a lot of musicians, a lot of creatives need drugs and alcohol? Well, I was like, that's because it masks, it's to keep them afloat, and it masks certain things. Maybe there's other, they've got depression or they've got anxiety underneath it. Then there's another awareness of like, well, if they've got depression and anxiety or these other things, what's underneath that? And that's like these potential, I'm not brushing it, but anyway, this study came out that of the 80%, it's something like 50% of them have got neurodivergent traits and stuff as well. So there is a common kind of thread along this, where those unhealthy cope mechanisms that we had for years, and it could be eating, it could be drinking, it could be this, and it could be this, and not keeping up with health, and that, not going to sleep, staying up late all the time. Gigs, we know, are notorious for that. We're constantly on the road, and then we get home at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then we've got to start the day again. It's just like, if you then tag that along with neurodivergent conditions, it's like there's no wonder we spiral and we go completely into the ground. So this is the ongoing research. There's not a lot of it, and this is why, oh my days, like we are, I don't know, I feel we're at this, it feels in some ways like the last few years feels like, that can be a long time of loads and loads of awareness and stuff as well, but actually we're only at the start of it, which is quite, it's amazing to think. But I'm like, the special interest of not only neurodiversity but also musicians, and dissecting it and figuring out, oh my word, this is where in some ways, and it sounds strange, the healthy musician is just sounds like an unfamiliar thing, because there's so many musicians who are like relied on this for years and years and years, done reckless things. Obviously there's addiction, obviously there's kind of gambling, there's everything under the sun, to now get to a point where we'll meet, the two of us will meet at a gig and we're teetotal and we don't do any of this as well, like, but the hardest thing I think is to do that, and I this has taken me a while to do it in a raw state. I've got nothing in my system, and to try and live life with healthy dopamines, like, I've been learning and stuff as well. And that's a completely shift. That's a massive shift in the music industry, a massive shift in our world, to be able to sort of maintain things in a natural state. But I don't know what how do you think about that, when I kind of reflecting over that? If you can remember anything I've just said, I don't know what.
No, I can. So,
The waffle.
So like for me, I mean, I need caffeine. Like, Jesus, how do people live without caffeine? So I use like I'm on prescription meds. I'm on fluoxetine, and it seems to be helping. And I also take CBD oil, so it doesn't have any THC in it. And I just feel like my brain is just so crazy that I'm so sensitive to everything, even food. Like if I ate white pasta, I would feel like crap for days. Like I don't know why I'm like this, and I don't know if it's an autistic thing, but I'm so sensitive to everything. Can you relate to that?
In some things, I have been playing around with gluten and starting to do things. I mean, stripping out alcohol was, I actually had to tell myself it was an allergy for my brain, for me to
it's a
give it up.
neurotoxin, isn't
It's
it?
like, it's just like, I was obviously, I'm like, why am I taking a depressant that, that's that, I was, at one point I was taking an antidepressant and then having drinking alcohol, which is depressant. I'm like, well, this is canceling out whatever it is and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was so sensitive to it. it
Mm.
affected me so much. So, but general eating and things as well, I think this is my next awareness, which sounds like that's where you've been
Yeah.
and I've probably been in the kind of the world of learning about these conditions and stuff as well. But now there's a book called ADHD 2.0. Have you read it yet?
No.
Uh,
I listen to like audiobooks and podcasts, mainly
right.
podcasts, because I really struggle to have the attention span to read. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I don't read. I read like little bits of stuff, like papers and things like that, but it's yeah. I'll definitely check that out.
I
Is that
think
what you mentioned the other
that
day?
was probably another book. There was Unmasked, which was a great book.
Yeah.
ADHD 2.0. It not only goes into obviously the talking about ADHD and things, it's about it goes into the neuroscience, which is great. And then you can go
Okay.
into nutrition, go in
Yeah.
things, but it might align with some things that you already know, and you're like, right,
Mm.
great, I'm already doing that. But it's only until I read that book, started
Yeah.
reading it, and I'm like, right, okay, I need to now get on top of this. I didn't realize, there is a kind of loose study that gluten and ADHD do not connect very well together.
Yeah.
And so,
I've just noticed that I don't think I can eat gluten. Like,
yeah.
I feel so much better without
So
it.
yeah, if
It's
you're talking about
bad.
white pasta, it's like, okay, well, if it's white pasta, what if it's that bread, and like what if it's this,
Yeah.
and I remember, because my wife's just cut out gluten, my son
Okay.
is dairy free, so we found alternatives and stuff as well. And like
Yeah.
I think there's a there's a thing as well. It's obviously experimentation. It's just like, okay, what stripping out, okay, I don't the caffeine thing is like, okay, I don't want to strip out coffee,
Nope.
but I know I also don't want to be having way too much at the same time and figuring it out and
Mm.
stuff as well. And I don't know, I think it's these things I think you're alluding to, it's like they take a long time, especially if you've got pre-programmed thing for 30 years or how many years and stuff as well. You
Yeah.
kind of like, you can't unravel all of that, the kind of the physical, the mental, and the
Mm.
awareness and the education and stuff as well. Like anyone who's getting a late diagnosis now, actually, when you got your late diagnosis of autism,
Mm.
did you have a feel that there was a build up to, once you've got it, you're like, oh great, this is gonna tick the box, it's gonna answer?
Mm.
Or I know for a lot of people, I had a build up to like, great, I know what it is. But then it asked more questions than it did
Yeah.
give me answers. And then it's almost like another second wind of like grief
Yeah.
and relief and all that
Um,
malarkey.
I didn't think I'd care. I really didn't think I'd care. And I literally screamed and cried.
Right.
It was so overwhelming. It's like that moment where everything makes sense. And something I found out the other day that completely blew my mind, that totally makes sense with the way autistic people think. We don't, when they say like, oh, they don't understand social cues, it's like we do. In fact, we're very aware of what's going on. It's what we're not, what we don't understand is this system of a hierarchy, because it doesn't compute with our brains. And it makes sense why I've always clashed with people of authority. Like I've had like office jobs, and I've clashed with like
Mm,
the office
mm,
manager, and I'm like, why doesn't he like me? And it's because I'm treating him like an equal. I see everyone as equal. I don't see a hierarchy. And I get really annoyed when people think that they act like they're above you, because do you
mhm.
know what I mean? It
Authority is a
really
massive
annoys me. I want
author
to punch them.
right.
I don't know how to handle it. And I'm aware it comes across as rude. I'm very aware, but I'm also, it's just the way my brain is. Like I just
Mm,
don't see a hierarchy. I see everyone is equal. Like I even see, I know this sounds crazy, but like this morning I spent 10 minutes trying to save a spider. I was like that putting like tissue on it, and I like revived this spider that was drowning. And like I I'm a vegan, so I see everything as equal. Everything. I think we're part of nature completely. Like we are nature. And this hierarchy thing just blows my mind because it's not even real. It doesn't
mm.
exist. I'm very aware that it's an illusion, and I'm very aware that it feeds ego, and I just can't handle that dynamic, which is why I had to work for myself.
Yeah.
Like I just
That
couldn't handle that dynamic. It made me
there
really angry.
the injustice, we have an injustice sensitivity as well as ADHD. There's that
Mm.
that was a massive thing and stuff as well. And that what that is as well, we're not going, oh, I am that way because of that trait. It's just like there is also a sort of validity to um hierarchy and the authority. Our
Yeah.
authority any situation. This is why also I know when I go and do a job, I make false promises to other people. I'm like, oh, I've got a job, and like, everyone else, oh, they're pleased because they know I've been a self-employed musician, and we know why that is just so up and down, and trying to sort of figure it out and navigate, like, pandemics, and also to be able to try and rebuild and stuff as well. But then I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I got myself in this job and stuff. 2 weeks later, I'm just like, I'm either going to get fired or I quit.
Yeah.
And
Same.
that and there's it's notorious. It's like I've spoken in the ADHD community and stuff as well, and also the autistic community. There's this tendency to, you start working at it. I think the dopamine hit of starting it goes after about a day. You kind of get this like,
Mm.
oh, it's a novelty, boom, that goes. But then when it starts to go, and then the authority kicks in, it's like a double bloody whammy, because you've like, the dopamine hit of the novelty is gone. Now you're getting on my case day two, or like, I don't know how many days it is into it. It's just like, this is not going to
Yeah.
work. And I reckon the only reason why a lot of neurodivergents maybe are working in these places and they're still working there, either they've suppressed it, or they've
Mm.
they've gone through a lot of shit and then figured out they've hit a department that fits with their brain. Maybe they've got someone who completely understands it and stuff as well, and they do speak on an equal level and stuff as well, because there is a tendency of, I know I had a self narrative where I was putting myself down, self sabotaging. I was doing this for years and years and years without the awareness of what was going on.
Mm.
So we're doing that internally, but if someone else is doing that externally, it's just like, whoa, hang on a minute, no. I like, back up, just keep backing up, because I'm doing
Yeah.
my best. I'm doing the best I am at this level and stuff as well. Please do not find extra bandwidth or wherever it is and stuff.
Yeah.
But to have that voice, to be able to say it and do it and stuff as well. And like, yeah, I used to shoot myself in the foot all the time.
Me
And
too.
like, I remember like one job, wherever it is and stuff, it's just, I just don't want to work here. And I said it to a
Mm.
manager or whatever. He was like, okay, see you later, mate. And I'm like, oh fuck, right, okay.
Yeah.
And
You just feel numb, like literally dead inside, like
yeah,
to that point,
and
you
and
hate it that much. Like,
and trying to say that to someone else, where grown up with a narrative of just like, well, you just got to suck it up, John. No, that's just, you just got to have a job, John. You
what's the
whatever it is,
point in
and
living?
I'm like, yeah, exactly. And there's like, I get it. I know I've got to work. I know I've got to earn money. I'm not, ignoring that I've got to earn money and stuff as well. But you've got to put me in an environment. You've
Mm.
basically, if I was a plant, you've put me into the darkness. You've put me,
Yeah.
there's no rain, there's no water, there's no sun or anything as well when I go and work on those jobs. So,
Yeah.
and I know you're going to get the worst out of me. You're going to get
Mm.
this, someone who takes the piss. And I'm like, I know that I don't want to be, I'm a maverick. And like, whether it is, I start breaking the rules or whatever it is, like go into these places. But when we work on our own, I'm like, okay, I suffer in a different way,
Mm.
but I'm like, I am getting the best out of myself. I think,
Mm.
like, and this is why, I mean, I've realized I had to get support. I had to get a coach, I had to get a therapist, and I've got this support worker through Access to Work, which is the government funding and stuff as well. But I'm like, I'm only going to get someone on board if they've got a neurodivergent brain, because I'm difficult to work with. I'm difficult
Yeah.
to do these things. I'm difficult to talk to. I'm like, I know that from their point of view, but from my point of view, I'm like, well, I'm just me. This is
Yeah.
just who I am. If
Yeah.
you can't accept all the colors and all the, you know the flaws or wherever it is and stuff, and
Yeah.
almost look past it and see, no, this is my strength,
Mm.
then you're the wrong person to be around me. And this is the problem with going into jobs where you've got no control of who,
Yeah.
you've got no control most of the time of what you do, who you're
Mm.
with, where you go, when you do it. And those are massive vital things with how our brains work.
Yeah.
which is why we end up working like. How long have you been self-employed, or are you working on your own?
Um, well, I mean, when I was, I've always kind of really worked for myself, like, but just in different ways. Like, when I was 16, it's just weird. I had I had an insulated shed in my garden, and I used to breed praying mantises and things like that, and just like exotic kind of like, pets. And I used to like sell them to museums and things like that. So it started when I
Yeah.
was 16. And then I was a guitar teacher when I was at uni, even though I was studying animal behavior. Um, and now, um, during the pandemic, I got into foraging.
Okay.
And so now that is like pretty much half of my income as well. So it's like I've just kind of
Wow.
like turned all of my special interests into my job. I do the odd kind of like videography work. Nothing like really professional, because I wouldn't consider myself like professional in that. But um, I just I just kind of earn money in different ways. But I do just like work for myself, and I seem to thrive in that kind of environment. And also I can't like force the energy to come. Like if you're in a burnout, you're in a burnout. Like you can't. But then when I do have the energy to work, like
Mm,
I
mm.
can do the work of five people. Do you know what I mean? It's just not consistent, and that's what a 9 to 5 job is. It's like for people who have consistent, balanced energy, which is not me. So it's
Yeah, completely relate. And I think also, um, there is a huge connection between nature and a neurodivergent brain. So
mm,
when you go out in nature, I said it. I can't remember what it was, like what episode. I think it was episode 2. I call it most neurotypicals, or whatever you want to call the rest of the world. 85% of them almost feel like they run their life, or they can hear things and see things in mono.
mm,
But then as neurodivergents, I feel like we see and hear things in stereo, everything
yeah,
sensory wise. This is why you go
yeah,
to a restaurant, you go out to social events and stuff as well. We're not
mm,
just listening to the conversation in front of us. We can hear every
everything.
freaking thing around
The
us,
the
which,
dishes,
yeah,
like,
yeah, which is
you
the,
know,
or the there's a fan going off, or there's like a
mm,
buzz here, or like the light bulbs, or whatever
yeah,
it is, there's a flicker. And if you're taking all that information in all at once,
mm,
that is unnatural sounds as well, unnatural things, like they're clashing. It's like frequencies, isn't it, when we listen to
yeah,
music in some ways. And we know that if they clash, we're like, right, I've got sensory overload, I can't be here now. But there is
mm,
something different about being out in nature, where it's open-ended, it's never
mm,
ending, but the sounds that seem to sort of cross over. It's like the sea. Actually, the sea is my, I grew up on the Isle of Wight, so I was surrounded by water, so I
wow,
used to go to the sea. And so it's the same with the woods, where I look at the sea and all the waves are crashing over each other when you look at it, and I'm like, that's my brain, all my thought patterns,
mm,
everything. But you look at it from the outside and there's a calmness, and you're
yeah,
like, it's the same if you go into the woods and you see all the roots are just like, everything's grown the way
mm,
it's got to, and it's all floating around, but it's doing it in such a natural state that
yeah.
feels
It's
natural
like,
to your mind.
yeah,
there's
it's
a
like a
there's
calm evolution like happening in front of your eyes kind of thing. I don't know how to describe it. I know what you're saying.
It's
And
a
that's
different
exactly,
stereo. Yeah, it's a different
yeah.
feeling of. I also, when I see it visually, the woods or the sea feels like a visual um, interpretation, or a visualization of my brain. I
Yeah.
I resonate. I look at it and I go, that's what my brain looks like. And in the
Yeah,
woods, everything's all like,
yeah.
everything's look. If you were to analyze it, and you're like, this, if you was in a living room, you're like, this place is a mess. Like, as some people would say, but I'm like, no, this place is just beautiful in nature, and just, and that's what I see when I go to the sea. It's just,
Mm,
that's what I think the instant calm is first. I look at it and I go, there's a calmness inside. But then when I listen, and I'm like, I, birds chapping or whatever it is could be conversations of other people, but I don't know, there's something that aligns with the millions of thoughts that I've got going on in my head crossing over. I call it the hive, where bees are crashing in, left, right, and center,
Yeah.
to the woods doing that same sort of thing. So I don't know. I don't know if you've looked into the nature of what you do in, in foraging and things as well, that
Mm.
it almost grounds you.
Oh, it's like, I feel like when I got into that, it kind of almost like brought me back to, like when you're a kid and you have that feeling of just pure safety and just like
Mm,
euphoria.
mm.
That's what foraging provided for me. And I was when I was a kid, I used to pick blackberries and stuff with,
Yeah,
my mom,
yeah.
and um it was very basic foraging, like as you do as a kid, and it just kind of brought me back to that. And um James would walk into the attic, is like my little den where I am now. And he'd come in and there was like leaves and just like random mushrooms, and just I'm sat there with 5 books, like I think it's agaricus, and he's like, what the hell? Like, it looks crazy, but I just have the time of my life. I love it. I feel like like I really enjoy IDing things and observing things and knowing what things are to make sense of the world around me.
And
And I know it's not my job to do that, because you can't make sense of everything, because that's impossible. But it at least helps me know how to navigate myself in this crazy world, you know?
you've been able to carve out, like, to be able to carve out something that, one, obviously, you can cover the bills or whatever it is and stuff. So there's the logic or whatever it is and all that sort of stuff. I think that's all we want. We want
Yeah.
something to be able to cover all bases, because like you said, you put me in an environment, you put me in the right area that
Mm,
will fulfill you, and job satisfaction is probably the number one thing that we go for. We don't,
mm,
money is important, but that's
yeah,
not what we do it for. We don't do it for those things. We job satisfaction, it comes first. And I know some
for
people are
sure.
like, that's a luxury or whatever it is. I'm like, no, but to to fit it with my brain, to fit it with our brains, to fit
Mm,
it with how we are as a person and stuff, and you want to get
yeah,
the best out of me,
yeah.
do this. But actually, the beauty of foraging at the same time, it will fulfill you, but at the same time, well, actually, I can make money out of this, which will fulfill this and do this and stuff. So it sounds like, you know, it's synchronized in so many different areas of that.
Mm.
And since you've been in that area, has that sort of had a feedback loop on your music?
Yeah. Um, I wrote a track called Into the Forest, and that was
Wow,
kind of
beautiful.
like during the time period of when I first kind of like, well, discovered it as an adult. So I guess it really did. And obviously it grounds me, and there's studies where just being in a forest, like, just it's so good for you. Like, it's so good for your
Mm,
brain, it's so good
mm,
for your body. Like, it literally regenerates your cells. Like, it's anti-aging, it gives you, like, you're getting, energy from the sun, like vitamin D. It's just like, if I don't go outside at least every 2 to 3 days, I can feel my brain depleting.
mm,
I
mm,
need it.
mm.
And luckily I have dogs, so they force me to get out. You have to do it. I don't always feel like it, but I never regret it. I always feel better when I've been outside, and I'm lucky enough to live in a semi-rural area where there's like forests and stuff nearby.
Yeah.
And I'm just really content, really. I don't really thrive to be like tour the world and stuff. I'm just like, I'm quite a home person. I quite enjoy just
Well,
doing my thing. I don't know.
I've seen our heroes and legends and all that sort of stuff, like in our field, particularly, and touring
Yeah.
and stuff as well. And I'm like, I used to back
Yeah,
in
me
the
too.
day, but I feel actually it was like a way of trying to it was an external thing to fill an internal void. I think
Mm.
touring was that sense. It felt like, oh, I've got to do that. That's what I've got to do as a musician, and it
Yeah.
will make me happy. It will fulfill me and stuff as well. And I'm like,
That's
now
just external,
it's
it's not
external.
internal. Yeah.
Exactly. And obviously, playing our music to those audiences. Yeah, I mean, if I get invited to go over, and there's someone put on a show, and I did it in Italy. Someone put on a show. They brought the audience. But they wanted my music there and stuff. So I'm like, fantastic. Well, I got to carve this shit out and carve a tour. I've done it with
Yeah.
the UK one. I think we met you up in Manchester, and it was part of that. And I co-booked. We did the one with Minnelli. So
Oh yeah.
you put on the Manchester Guitar Night. It
Yeah.
was that. I think it was that tour. And then I did one with Billy. I think Billy and you put on another one, didn't you? We had two.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's two,
Yeah.
right? But I remember booking those tours, and this is before I knew I had ADHD and autism. And I did it off my own bat, and especially in the Minnelli one, I had to
Mm.
get him over and then figure out all the stuff.
Yeah.
I drove 1,500 miles over whatever span it was, but I was going to the gig, and then after the gig, I was driving him back to central London and then going
Right.
back home. Oh my word! I'm like, talk about
I
like,
would crash
oh
after
yeah,
that. Like
I almost crashed the car. I was so
superhuman mode.
yeah,
I saw the mode you was in. I was
right.
like, wow, this
And
guy's
I
on
was just
fire.
like, I thought, I thought it was just mental health. Like I was getting worn out and stuff as well.
Yeah.
I now look back, I'm like, shit, you had all of that, like the other stuff going on, like
Mm.
ADHD, not and like going like, oh yeah, let's do it. And like then the autism, like, oh, perfection, nothing's here, we're not where. I'm like, like, and when you've got other companies maybe sorting out, they can book tours and they can book gigs and they can sort out your hotels and stuff as well. Obviously you hit the point and you work really hard to get to that, but trying to do it yourself, oh my
Mm.
days, I'm like, I've done it, I've
Yeah.
been there, experienced it, but
Mm.
actually I'm the same. I'm like, I don't touring's not for me.
No.
I mean, we've got family, obviously, we've got dogs and things as well, where you're like, there's certain things at home where you're grounded and you can be your best
Mm.
self. You throw that out of context, especially
Yeah.
autism, where yeah, we know our routine, but you don't know where you're going location wise. You don't know the smells, the textures, the
Yeah.
people. You've got to talk to lots of people. You've
Yeah.
got
And
to
I
do
can't
these
sleep.
things.
I can't sleep in a new environment. Like, so
Right.
it's like I'm doing all this with no sleep. Like I just can't, there's so many aspects, isn't there, that just make it so incredibly difficult. Like having to be in superhuman mode on like 5 hours sleep because you're constantly waking up, not, smelling different smells and just being, your body's just like, I'm not safe, I'm not safe. And it's just like you are. It's just
Fight or flight. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a constant state of fight or flight, isn't it, sometimes? But yeah, like don't get me wrong, like the odd like mini tour and stuff is great. And
Yeah.
but you build up the energy for that and then you can really enjoy it,
Well,
when you do it.
you can put like we would do the thing where we would analyze every single thing about that location to go, I want to know where the nearest coffee shop is before I get there.
Oh, I
I
do
don't
that.
mind wondering whether it's, but it's like I need to know where my essentials are and stuff. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the same thing as well with like coffee. I've turned up to places and they're like, I'm not a coffee snob, but I'm like, now I've stripped out alcohol. Now I've stripped out certain things. There are certain things now where I'm like, I
Mm,
want a decent coffee. I want to be able to taste it and go,
yeah.
like when I went over to Italy, I had an Italian espresso, and I'm like, oh my days, this is
Mm,
amazing, whatever it is and stuff. If I turn up somewhere and I have, I don't mind, but they go, we got instant. I'm just like, no, I'm just
yeah.
looking for my one specific kind of fix of whatever
I
it is.
totally get it. Like I've
Yeah,
just gone to ground coffee for the first time in my life. Like I always had
right.
Nescafe.
Which is fine. And I think when it's almost like when you go there, like
Yeah.
I got a few Christmases ago, my folks and that got me a bean to cup coffee machine. I didn't expect it, but it was like I have a December birthday, like combine everyone build, sort of
Yeah.
combine the presents and stuff as well. And it just sounds one of these things that I think once you go there and then you
Mm,
go and taste everything else, you're like,
yeah.
ah, right, okay, there is a difference, whatever it is. But I think these are the things as well where, you know, hanging around in airports, hanging around in this or whatever it's in the hotels.
Mm,
I did a wedding a gig over in France, over in Italy last year, and it was over
oh,
like 3 days, which was great. And I
mm,
stayed in this hotel, but I had a moment where I walked out and I forgot the key, and it's one of those where you need the
oh,
key to get in, and I was locked
yeah.
out, and I was like,
Oh no.
this is where you are thrown into
freak out, don't you? Yeah.
into utter chaos. And like I don't have the kind of, you know, obviously we have the coping mechanisms, but I think we build up the coping mechanisms, the resilience and everything as well for normal life.
Mm.
Every day I feel all I'm trying to do is get up to a basic level,
Yeah.
my normal level. I'm not trying to go, okay, I've locked myself out of the house territory.
Mm.
What am I going to do now? All I'm doing is like, right, I've got to try and get dressed, get to eat. I've got to try and get to work, drop the
Yeah.
kids off at school. That's, but for normal people, like for a lot of people, that's baseline. Oh, that's just baseline. That's just basics. I'm like, that's not
Yeah.
my baseline basics. It's probably
Yeah.
lower. Just to get out of bed is, you know,
Yeah,
baseline.
but I don't know if you can relate to this, but sometimes, like, you know, like maybe if something's out of sync with your routine or something, you can get stressed. But then if you put into a really chaotic situation,
Mm.
you're so calm, like, and you can just handle it. Like, not in every situation. Or I'm just saying, like, those moments almost prepare you for what holistic people would consider chaotic. You
Yeah,
know,
definitely.
that's
I
all I'm
think
saying. I'm not
no,
saying I'm
no, you're
better at
right.
it, but
It's very it's very strange how the big things like that, you can go into a mode where I think it's because you can somehow, you almost cut out the emotion. You can cut out the emotion of it and go into logic. But if there's
mm,
something small that goes out of the routine and stuff as well,
mm,
and I think that's because we've kind of fixed it because we know that maintains levels and stuff as well. Um,
yeah,
it's interesting how that plays out. I know now, I mean, because it took me ages to recover and repair over the last 2 years, and it's only been since maybe this year where I've got back to, I mean, this is probably also COVID obviously was the descend, like the spiral and stuff as well, and then it went really, really right down to the bottom, and then you kind of build it back up.
oh
So when
yeah,
you're kind of talking about those moments there, I reckon I'd be able to like deal with it now. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't. I know that about autism as well, and I'm trying to go. Where have I been in a situation? I mean, we blew a tire in Wales
mm,
about 2 or 3 weeks ago, in between South and North Wales, and we're in the middle of nowhere. And I
mm,
just got on with it. And it was the
yeah,
first time where, for years, because I've been in maybe depression, maybe I think depression kicked in or whatever it is. And I was just like, oh, I'm too weak to be able to do these certain things. But that
mm,
was a moment where didn't make a fuss, I just went straight into it. It's not
yeah,
necessarily a crisis moment, but I mean, it can be if you're in the middle of nowhere. But
yeah,
that that is things I'm starting to see,
mm.
maybe.
Like
Um,
you're reacting in a different way to how your past self would have reacted, and
yeah,
therefore you're seeing that little element of growth,
yeah, I
which is
think it's
really great.
growth and really like actually all that hard work that you do that no one else can really see.
Mm,
The internal awareness, the internal education of what is going on with you, and the introspection and all that sort of stuff as well, and unraveling it all is like for moments like that. I'm not
mm,
talking of like granular things and stuff as well. That's what all the work that I'm doing and stuff like it's for literally like I could blow a
yeah,
tire. Or this weekend, and I've never been able to do this. We got our living room, and I've just stripped all of the wallpaper and then put on new lining paper and stuff as well. And that could be an utter chaos and stuff. And
yeah,
it's not something that I was able to do for years and years and years. And it's just like,
mm, me too.
how have I just been able to do this over the last few days? And I'm like, that's it's the signs of,
Yeah, yeah,
there's the late diagnosis, there's the revelations and stuff as well. And we can get all the info, but if we don't take the info and then put action into place to be able to do it,
yeah,
I think you just constantly keep going on that hamster wheel where you keep just doing the same things that you were doing before. But it sounds like both
definitely.
of us have like we've shifted so many things in our life. Like if you shift your work to the environment where you're, you know, for your well-being more than
Mm,
anything, it sounds like. Because if we go in a workplace where it's getting the worst out of us, that's going to destroy our well-being. It's going to affect our mental health, all sorts of stuff. And then we get authority, we get this, it's so many things that people don't
mm,
realize when we put ourselves into the wrong workplace.
yeah,
You put yourself, like you said, into the right environment. You then put your health from where it was into the right environment. You put your And then money improves, and then this improves, and then everything else, relationships improve, like
Yeah,
because
it's all
it
completely relatable.
it's yeah,
It's all interconnected, isn't it?
it
Like,
is.
so like if you build up a discipline to quit some substance that you might have had an addiction to, you're building up that discipline, which will be in other areas of your life. Like, there's been points in time when I've had that low discipline that I just can't even do an email, and it takes me 3 weeks, to do one email. Like, and it's really bad. Like, and I mean, it's not like I don't have it now. Like, it's just I'm like, okay, self-care mode. That's my priority. You know,
It
rather than push yourself, keep pushing yourself. That doesn't work. You
No,
just go
no, no, you
further
can't
into
work
burnout.
harder. You can't work
Yeah.
harder. Like that, actually, if you feel, obviously we've got we need a dopamine tank. It's almost like a dopamine reserve we need every day.
Mm.
I've been taught by I have to have an operational system, which is like what I loved Ellie Middleton's. I feel I've been living as a PC my whole life. And I've
Mm.
been, but actually, in fact, I'm actually a Mac, and I should have been using apps like this and stuff as well.
Yeah.
And I feel when we don't have that lack of dopamine, now we can do all the things like we're doing in our routine and stuff as well. um, with these conditions, we're going to have days where it just doesn't work and things.
Mm.
But there's also signs that if I'm not able to send an email and it's taking me ages and stuff as well, there's something deeper rooted going. There's something else going
Mm.
on. It's common, almost like you've just said there. Instead of just trying to focus on sending an email and persevering and tenacity, actually, if I go and step back and work on myself, work on my self
Mm.
care, work on my health,
Yeah.
work on other stuff as well, and then I come back to that email a
Mm.
week later, maybe, and
Yeah.
then you've sent it. That,
Yeah.
that I think that's an annoying thing that I've found sometimes, where I'm like, I can complete a task like that really
Mm.
quickly, and then I go, why the fuck did that take me so long to do? But then I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. No, I was in a bad place last week. No, I've just done X, Y, Z,
Mm.
and now I've been able to send it. But
Yeah.
most of the time, it feels reactive. It feels like we, the awareness, and I don't know if you find like this and stuff as well. Like, we can be having conflict, we can be having a conversation with someone, and then we can get sparked up very, very quickly. But the awareness of how our traits have, I don't know, picked up or they've blown up. Um, I had no awareness before. Now I'm starting to get awareness. It's like a reactive awareness after I've had the argument or after I've had the conflict.
Yeah.
Now, the goal now, and this is the hardest, is to try and get the awareness during the conversation that I'm like,
Right.
something's starting to flare up. Oh, I'm just about to say something that I'm going to regret. They don't
Mm.
care about it, but I'll be ruminating for next week about it. And then
Yeah.
obviously the ultimate goal is to try and be that proactive
Yeah.
awareness. I'm just about
Yeah.
to enter and see my partner. I've got something on my mind. If she or he says something, I'm gonna flare up. Da, da, da. Never happen. I mean, it's not happened yet, but I know
Yeah.
that's almost like my ultimate goal, and I call it emotional maturity and stuff as well. But I'm like, is it, or is it just trying to get a handle on these sort of stuff as well? But
Yeah.
I also think we've got to be kind to ourselves
Yeah.
when
I
shit like
think
that happens.
I think for me it's like pattern recognition, like because I
Right.
know that autistic people are quite good at pattern recognition, and like so say you do something or say something, and then something happens, and then like I've had it where I've like reflected on it and just like beat myself up, or I
Yeah.
thought, okay, like maybe I was actually like maybe I should have done this, and but just kind of give yourself compassion whilst just being the observer of the situation. And then next time something similar arises, just kind of like trying to bring that thought pattern into your awareness and just try and do it differently, how your future self would like to do it. And then you notice a different pattern.
Mm.
And then it's all about pattern recognition. And I think that's how I've kind of, I mean, got to where I am in terms of well-being, because I've been at the very, very, very bottom. I'm lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
And I have like just spent my whole life just building myself up and just trying to have compassion for myself, and just like, rather than doing the email being like, what do you need? Are you thirsty? Like, have you had your supplements today? Like, when did you last go outside? and then sometimes you really don't want to do those things, and you have to kind of like, sometimes you have to really, build up the strength to even just put like a potato in the air fryer, just something
Yeah.
like that. But I have like these like safety meals and things like that, and frozen vegetables and stuff like that for those situations. But I have learned that nutrition is everything in those situations, and it's the only thing that you can control, you know.
And with, do you have, obviously that's self-care and things as well, and like there's the awareness to the self-compassion, and that consistency is it can be really tricky, because like we can
Mm,
have these things, routines, we can have all these set out, but
yeah,
we don't, we have no idea what's coming in, like regards to like we can plan for tomorrow, but then like I'll wake up and I'm like, no, do you know what, I'm
yeah.
utter mess, I'm like, I have no idea. So I suppose then having that support team or support
Mm,
network around you, do you feel
mm,
that is strengthened, like obviously partner, partner, or any family or any friends or
yeah,
other things and stuff as well, for when you have those days,
yeah,
that sometimes, do you know what, we don't even want to say it, we don't even
mm,
want to go, I'm having a bad day, or this is
mm,
not happening today, or everything stuff. They know you so well that they can
mm,
pick up, right, okay, this is going to be this type kind of day. All right, there's stuff in the freezer. There's this stuff here.
yeah,
Because I almost have work, I have a poor working memory. So I even forget about all the things that I've got that are my coping mechanisms, that
yeah.
they've even written down stuff as well. But how do you feel with your support network around you to,
Mm.
do you,
I'm incredibly lucky. Like I have, I'm so happy with the people that I have in my life. And it's just like little things like I have like sensory issues with sound. So if I'm in that state of mind, then you know, James might turn the TV down, if there's like gun noises and stuff. I'm so sensitive to like, I call them man noises. So if there's like this like crazy noise on the telly, I just scream like man noise. And then he'll like turn it down and stuff. But it's almost like he can predict, those things that might trigger me in that state of mind. And I've got like really like close friends. I have like a really close friend who lives nearby who's also a vegan, and like on days where we just can't face life, we might be like, oh, I've got an extra portion of food, do you want it? And we'll just drop it off. And it's just like I've really just got like such a huge um network of loving people, and I wouldn't be where I am without them.
mm,
Like I really
mm,
wouldn't. Like where would I have got the energy from? um so it's, yeah, and that like led on to like creativity and special interests, and like you've got to fuel those things from somewhere. And for me, like that support network is a foundation. And
that,
not everyone has it.
no,
Like imagine having being neurodivergent and having no one. Like I can't, like it's just like, oh my God,
yeah,
I'm so
you're having to
fortunate.
pick yourself up and scrape yourself. Yeah, yeah. And I think also with the support network, like, I know, and I even like connect with you and connect with others. It's just like I know the energy comes back around. So it's just like you said, you'll drop off food or whatever and stuff as well. There is a tendency to just like we support each other. You're like
Mm,
you're energized and you support me like when I'm on my days and stuff as well. And it sounds like you do the same for others when you are energized yourself. You will, we
yeah,
have, it takes, I know we need a lot of energy, we need a lot of bandwidth to be able to try just get through the day and stuff,
yeah,
which I think that's the understanding of like, look, the it's like someone who maybe has a physical disability and stuff as well, like walking is so easy for us, but for them it takes up extra bandwidth that they've got to be able to do and stuff, and this is the same with our heads and stuff, like we, the base, some of the basic tasks takes
mm,
us 3 times the amount of effort or whatever it is for someone else to be able to do something like that, depending on how we are on our days. And for other people to recognize that, for other people to come in and go and be aware of that before you even have to say anything, you know, um, I think it is such. a wonderful thing to have. And like you said, you know, the gratitude of that. And but I think when like you said, when you're feeling up on your days and
Mm,
you've got your dopamine reserve, you've got your energy you've built up and stuff as well,
yeah.
it's you give back as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's I, I think that's one of the messages. You can get a diagnosis, yeah. You can go and get meds. You can get physical and mental, you know, assistance and all these other things, like, you know, like obviously exercise with physical, and then mental is, you know, therapy, coaching and stuff as well. But that
Mm,
other support network and strengthening and getting people around you who is not judgmental, who's not critical, like stuff is like completely understanding of what's going on. You
yeah.
don't have to say anything. It's like it's almost like everyone's got a spidey sense before you
Mm,
have.
yeah, exactly.
I know some people around me, like, they notice that I'm starting to flare up before I know I flare up, and
Yeah.
that is vital. And you're right, for those who don't have that, it's trying to seek out community or trying to seek
Yeah.
out other things. I suppose to sort of wrap this up then is the question of, um do you have any advice or anything who, for maybe it's neurodivergent musician, or, you know, it can be
Mm.
neurodivergent in general, depending on who's listening to this podcast, for anyone who's going through this late
Um,
diagnosis or
yeah, like just to be fully aware of the fact that self-care isn't selfish and it's in fact altruistic. And the only reason I can like give when my cup is full is because, you know, I've put in that energy and time into myself. And it's it's like a wave effect, isn't it? It's like a snowball effect. So it's like if you kind of build yourself up, then you can like build other people up, and then maybe your cup is completely depleted. And you have to kind of learn to recognize that and be like, don't give, you can't. Like you're just gonna go downhill. Because I've
Mm,
done it where I've been like almost like manically, you know, like manic compassion in a way, where it's
mhm,
kind of like, and in a way it's almost like people pleasing, but it comes from a sense of needing to feel safe, doesn't it? So in and people can recognize that. So it's just kind of like building yourself up, recognizing that we're all equal and it's absolutely okay, you know, to feel what you feel and it's completely valid, and you have to feel it to get through it. So, you know, if you are quitting a substance, of course it's going to be awful. You're going to feel everything you've been repressing for years. It's you're going to have a breakdown. Like, but when you get through that, you build yourself up, and it's like this almost like person that was always within you, that was just waiting at the other end by going through those emotions and feeling them, you know. And obviously we're constantly like it's hard the way the world's built, you know, like it's constantly like distracting us, telling us to buy things, selling us, you know, things like that have like quick dopamine hits, and it's taking us away from the actual meaning of life, which is
mm.
right here right now, you know. um and to get to that realization, you have to ask yourself what you need in that moment, you know, but like what you genuinely need, not what your brain thinks it needs, kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
I there's also a sense of, um and with time, with these things.
Oh yeah,
So
time. Never
once you've got
rush.
your once you've got your diagnosis, the healing, or the or what, however we call it, the healing process of that grief, and like just being at one with it, because I felt like they were separate, like, identities at first. It was like, I've got this John, I've got ADHD John, and autistic John. What,
Mm,
you know, it just felt like it's an identity crisis.
yeah.
And to synergize that and to bring that back in, like, you know, there's no way I could tell anybody, like, oh yeah, it will take you 6 months, or it will take you months. Like, just let it take as long as it's got to take.
Yeah,
And
you can't
obviously
rush.
the awareness and the education and the action, that, I mean, that's ongoing. That's just going to be keep going for
Yeah.
the rest of my life now, because it's not
Mm,
something that I can solve or cure
yeah.
or whatever. It's now just management, but obviously like
Mm.
everything you've alluded to there, like you can't give from an empty cup. And if you
No.
try to, you burn out, and then burnout then means you're on a spiral of this. It's just, and I mean, the brutal obviously thing is, that's a lived experience. You've almost got to, I kind of give advice for that. I'm like, once you experience burnout, once you've experienced and stuff as well, you learn from it and stuff. Not that I want anyone to go through these things, but we naturally do anyway. But I think the resilience, and the more you're becoming aware of these things every time it happens, you start, I know for summer holidays now with the kids and stuff, it's just, I used to book out things every day, all the time. I
Mm.
was like, why the hell am I feeling destroyed? Right. One day of activity, next day off, one day. Now it's how I've mapped things. But you don't know that until you're starting to slowly put bricks in the road, test new things as well. So anything you try, I don't know if you felt with this, like trying things, but don't put yourself down if it doesn't fit with what you're doing. Maybe it's stripping out something, maybe it's trying this way of doing things, or
Yeah.
kind of go with your instinct, getting that intuition back as well.
Mm. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
intuition, that authenticity, that kind of groundedness, that takes time as well. So yeah, time is a
Sure.
major thing of just,
Mm.
you
But
know
once you kind of, not that you need the diagnosis, but once you get that realization, it's a path of compassion toward yourself and understanding, and it just gets better, and you just find who you are, and it's amazing.
especially when you
Again,
have conversations like this, like
oh yeah,
when you have a conversation with someone who knows exactly, in some cases, not all the assets, obviously we have different perceptions, different backgrounds, different upbringings, there's lots of other things, but
mm,
in particularly this subject, when we can talk and you go, oh my days, I don't have to go and explain anything to you, I don't have to describe, like we can just
yeah,
talk about it, and
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's a lived experience. I think those conversations as well, and I know it's scary, I found it really scary to go and speak to other neurodivergent people, because I'm like, I don't know, am I being a fraud? Is this real and everything as well? And maybe that fraud thing played into the diagnosis as well. I was
mm,
going out of self-diagnosis for a while, but I was scared to say it. And then, that was for me. I'm like, I wanted something valid. I wanted something valid. I wanted, not that, it's strange. It didn't matter in the end. I mean, I've got diagnosed and stuff as well. And I was like, oh, you should have validated when you were self-diagnosed as well. But maybe there was this, I felt like a fraud going out,
mm.
speaking to other people, going,
I
oh, I've
totally
got
get it.
ADHD. And they're like, oh, when were you diagnosed? Oh, I haven't got that. Like, and I've like, that's
Yeah,
what was holding me back from having
yeah.
conversation.
I don't know about
Um,
you, but like I can literally, like, this sounds so arrogant, but I can like be in an airport and look around, and it's almost like this, like, obviously, like, your like consciousness and soul is behind someone's eyes. It's like you can see that deepness, or like just difference, in people that are neurodivergent. I can't describe it. Um,
it's a spidey
and
sense. I call it the spidey
yeah, it's
sense.
like intuition as well. Like you have it, obviously you're neurodivergent. Like, I don't know, it's just really cool. And also, like, you meet like other aliens and they have no idea, and it's just like in your head you're like, you're definitely autistic. And then they might get like diagnosed. I have had that, and I'm not saying I'm always right, but it's literally like spotting an alien in the middle of nowhere, and I know I don't have, the background and degrees to diagnose people, but it's a frequency thing. When someone's on the same level
Frequency,
as
it's
you.
an energy thing as well.
It's
Like,
yeah.
I know that when someone's de-energizing me by shutting whatever I have to give down, or what other conversations, or something, it's like, I'm like, there's something not flowing here.
Mm,
Whereas I know you're right, you can see it, but when you're immersed in it and stuff as well, you're like,
yeah.
okay, this is someone that I want to be around anyway. But
Mm,
there's also a part of me, it's just like, it's curious awareness. I think that's what it is. Like, maybe there's
yeah.
that stuff as well of like, do you know what? Like, and before you know it, if you're going on side quests, if you're talking like this way, if you're going into rabbit holes and stuff as well, you're like, yeah, okay, this is someone that I want to carry on spending lots of
Yeah.
energy with, or seeing from a distance and being really curious about it and stuff as well. So
Yeah,
but I
definitely.
think that's there's something about the awareness and education and all the actions that we're taking and stuff as well that will naturally start to flow. I think we will give off a different energy
Mm,
as well. So when we're out, because where we, I know I suppressed it. I had a mask over me for years and years and years. I was people pleasing and do all this other stuff. Now I'm not.
yeah.
It is interesting with the people, like the response around me to who I'm being now, which has always
Mm,
been that way, but
yeah.
how you know how different it is of just like releasing the shackles. I haven't completely done it yet, but it's going through that whole
Oh, it
process.
takes a lifetime.
It's just to be able to go. I also know now, like I used to try and make like almost, I don't know, it'd be like loved ones or whatever it is and stuff as well. I'm just like, I just want to have a conversation the way I have a conversation. And then you're gonna get to a point where you're using so much energy, you're using so much bandwidth on
Mm,
something that's not gonna happen.
yeah.
Then the realization now is just like, okay, actually I'm distributing my energy to different people and different ways
Yeah.
now than how I used to.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, all holistic people apparently build connection through small talk. So autistic people are aware that doesn't feel genuine, and it's just kind of like,
yeah,
come on, let's get to the deep shit.
yeah,
Like, come on, like
yeah,
I
yeah.
I love deep conversations. Like
I hate small
it's
talk.
I don't even know
So
what to do. Like,
school routine. We walk in and I have to pick up the kids, and that is bloody a pond of small talk where I'm like,
yeah,
no, I just go,
yeah,
get out, get out, get out, because you're right. It's just like
yeah.
it's
Let's talk about the
plastic
weather.
conversation. Yeah, it's just
Weather's
plastic
good.
conversations. I just, I'm like, but the annoying thing is, we have I've obviously come into small talk and start doing it, but then I've gone in deep, and they're like, I've got to go now, and I'm like, ah, fuck, I've gone
Yeah.
like I've stepped in too deep. I'm like,
Oh
shit,
yeah.
sorry, I said too much. Like that's what my head's doing. It's like screaming out loud to them, going,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go in too deep. It's
I
just the way I
know.
do it. I'm like, and I'm right.
I
I'm gonna they're gonna forget this, but I'm now gonna ruminate this for the next
Yeah, I,
24
I I'd
hours.
tell a taxi driver about my traumas. Like I'm just like,
Right, which like it's I love, because it's just like, oh my god, it's so freaking relatable to
but
do shit like that.
I
Or
know, and you just live once. It's like, why not just give everything, you know? And I don't know. That's how my autistic brain
well,
thinks. And
but this is why, like the narrative of when someone used to say, oh, you're telling your life story, I used to hear that for a few people sort of saying it. I'm like, is it they're telling their life story, or is it actually something else going on, like whatever, like with their brains, to be able to go and be transparent, like
mm,
you know when you were saying that everyone's equal, well, it's almost like taboo subjects, everything in the world that we can talk about is just, well, it's not taboo, it's just, they're just subjects and they're just transparent. So I
yeah,
used to openly talk to strangers about my finances and just tell them what was in my
yeah.
bank account, like what was going on, and then my wife would be like, what the fuck, like what are you doing, why are you saying that? And I'm like, what, it's just numbers and facts and whatever it is and stuff like that.
Comes and goes, doesn't
I
it?
don't have a, it's such a truth that I don't have a personal connection to this or taboo subject, like and there'd be other subjects where I know I'm not religious, but my wife's family are, and I'd be
Mm,
openly start talking about religion and just like, you can't do that, and I'm like, i I don't get the etiquette and the red and the
yeah,
white lines and the boundaries. And because we don't get the white lines, which is
mm,
9 to 5 jobs, that's the same thing.
yeah,
It's just like, well, why is there stands to this, why
yeah.
do I have to talk in certain ways? um and that's such an interesting thing of like what you
No.
were just saying, there's certain things we like
Well,
talk
I
about
said
person.
to a religious person once, like, but I wasn't being mean. I was just curious, and I was like, what makes you think that your God's the right one? Like, but I didn't. Oh gosh, hit the microphone.
No, I did the
Um,
same thing. It's
um,
excitement, we're getting to
but I'm just curious, like, and I'm completely open to a God, you know, but I'm also like open to there being no
I'm
God. Like I just want to
I'm
know the truth.
agnostic. I'm like, I sit on
Yeah,
the
me
fence,
too.
like
I seek
going.
truth.
I think also it's that, like, you walk into a forest and stuff as well. Like, I'm just on the boundary. I'm sitting on the fence, just watching this all play out, every
Yeah.
single thing play out, and I'm like, I'm open to talk about it. So sometimes I have my views and stuff as well, and then I'm trying to go, actually, have I got a fixed view here? What's going on? And but I'm willing to curiously dissect into someone who picks up on certain things that I say, and I'm like, whatever it is and stuff as well. But yeah, you're right. I have said stuff, but then it's like I come away from it going, did I just put my foot in my mouth? What did I? Or was that just a nice, was that just an open, curious question? I
We're
wasn't
just very
offending anyone.
curious.
I'm not going
Yeah,
out to offend anyone or to be,
exactly.
to have, but why is there resistance to be able to do this? And I'm like, okay, and I'm that, but I don't know. You're right. And I think that's just how our brains, and with the way we're wired and way we see the world in so many different ways, which is, but then also gives us a feedback loop of, for years, well, that's why this world's not fitted. It's not going to fit to me, and
Yeah,
why should I fit to it, like the square peg in a round hole? And so
exactly.
instead of a square peg in a round hole, which is jobs and conversations and other people and everything as well, well, I want to find square peg with square holes and
Yeah,
other things
yeah,
and stuff as well, which leads us to that kind of, now this journey, and why we're in music and why we do other things in our life that fit to us and stuff as well, because like, you'll get the best out of us. But um I don't know, I almost feel like I want to wear a badge which is like, I'm gonna have weird conversations. I don't like small talk. I like, it's
I
just a
know.
long list of
Well,
shit that
apparently it's a sunflower, isn't it? The artistic
oh, is it?
badge. But I mean, my whole life I've seen it and I'm like, oh, that's a nice flower. Like I'm just like, I don't even know what it means. But I don't know.
No, I don't know either.
I'm
But
gonna
anyway,
get a sunflower.
this feel like we could have had a part two. We've gone into
I
so
know.
many other different sort of areas, especially communication and all this other stuff as well. So, but yeah, this is why I wanted this have conversation, because I know we've been going back and forth online and stuff as well.
Yeah.
But to actually have, a conversation where we can go into different rabbit
Yeah.
holes and sort of bounce off different things
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I just say, like, you're really cool and you're really authentic, and I think it's great what you're doing. And yeah, it's just nice to know you. Keep in
Ditto.
touch. And
Of
yeah,
course, we know, and I hope to get to come up to Manchester, or you get to come down this way again, or
yeah,
whatever
for
it is and
sure.
stuff as well. But I like saying, we've got this neurodivergent musician community. That was so. I think I sent out a research form recently, wherever it is, and like, I think it was the support thing, like just having us as a connection
Yeah.
and stuff as well. And on the back of it, it's one of those where I'm like, a lot of us are just seeking for this kind of authentic conversations and openness
Yeah.
about, talk about things that other people don't really want to talk about, but we're just
Yeah.
freely talking
But
about
it's
it.
just
So
life, isn't it?
it
Like,
is.
I don't know why people don't talk about normal life things. I don't know. Like, are we the normal ones? I have no idea.
Do you know what? There was something about in cave times and stuff as well that I think we were the dominant. Like, even though it's only like 50% of us, I think we were the dominant sort of.
Yeah.
And then it became the 85% with the Industrial Revolution. There's all this sort of stuff as well that we go, okay, I'm going into the narratives and the dissection and everything as well. But it's exciting, but at the same time, it can be incredibly overwhelming when you're
Yeah.
like, when you immerse yourself into all of this,
Sure.
because
Definitely.
it's a feedback loop, because it's not, I'm not thinking about someone else. It kind of, it comes back around and it's like, oh no, I'm talking about me, and all of this stuff as well.
But a common thing that neurodivergent people do is someone will say something and then the other person might respond saying like, "Oh, this happened to me." And from an holistic person's mindset, they might think, "Oh, they're making it about them," but it's not. Neurodivergent people do that
To
to
resonate.
seek that connection and understanding. And it's just there's so many like different wires that people don't get. And
Yeah, Yeah.
We might come across as arrogant or self-indulgent or like we know it all, and it's just like it's just not the case. Like if anything, we see each other as equal. Like we don't
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
not below
that's
anyone,
it. It's the
you know?
I am in your story.
Exactly.
But I think also another thing is apparently there's audible audio sensory things and stuff as well, as in regards to we take in information, but the majority want me to reflect back and almost repeat back that information that you've just told me.
Mm.
But I can't. One, I don't know, it's dyslexia, but I think it's other neurodivergent condition that I can't naturally or authentically process that information to be able to reflect back to you. It just
Mm.
doesn't feel authentic unless it's a
Yeah.
tool or a technique or something that I've built up
Yeah.
specifically. And so to bounce off of my own reflection is actually a caring way of I've heard you, but now I'm going to I'm going to reflect back on it so we can
Yeah.
meet in the middle. It's the
Yeah.
same with the cutting up thing. The cutting up thing is without a doubt seen as like that is so arrogant. Why that's so like, oh, like why would you cut me up in the middle of the conversation? It's because I've got this burning
Yeah.
thought. If I
You're gonna
don't
forget
say
it.
yeah, I'm gonna forget it.
Yeah.
If I don't say it, it's like a Coke can. It will fizz up to the top, fizz up to the top, and I will
Totally get
try and
it.
keep it in. And also, I'm trying to store it here to be able to say it right now. Not only am I going to forget it, but I'm going to forget every single thing that you've just said to me.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and it's like a double whammy of like
Yeah.
forgetfulness. And
And it
it's
does
just like,
happen. Like it's probably happened like twice in this podcast,
yeah,
but and you know we understand it and we know it's nothing
no,
personal, and it's just the way our brains are. Like if we're really interested in something, like we'll just like keep talking and talking, and you know. But if there's something like, oh, I don't know what to say in response to that, like I would much rather not say anything and be authentic and talk when I really feel like I have something to
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
And but I think that's I think for me, that's which condition is coming up to the set. My ADHD will do the
Mm,
bouncing off and then the cutting in, but then the autism will do the certain things where I will be awkward and quiet in certain situations and then sort of speak. So it's like that has been my own awareness and education of what is playing out here right now, and to be able to go and sort of dissect them. Because I was told recently I don't take any ADHD meds yet, and I've been on the fence of whether I do. And I was told through another podcast actually called ADHD Adults, and she was saying once she went and had the ADHD meds, her autistic traits went straight to the surface, right to the primary,
I've
because
heard about that.
obviously, yeah. So there's almost like I'm like, well, what do I do here? Do I take the meds and let this one come to surface, or do I like the ADHD I feel is very
Which one do you
primary,
want?
and this one I'm like, which one do I want to play out? And then the dyslexia is like, because it's been I've known it for longest and I've now been able to work in it the longest. I feel like it's the older brother, and then I've got like these other. I feel like the ADHD is the younger brother, the autistic one's the middle, No, sorry, the youngest child, the middle child, and then the dyslexia is the oldest one. And I see these
Yeah.
siblings playing out in whatever it is, and it must on the outside, it must be like, oh my days, like if you've got three things playing with you all the time and stuff as well, there's no wonder the way you are. And
Mm.
so all it comes down to is then acceptance.
Yeah.
I can really grind myself into the ground and going, or I can go, do you know what? I'm just going to sit here and just allow these things to play out and accept that's what's going on. And this is who they don't define who I am at my root, but, and then it's just embracing, right? What I can, if I focus on struggles and problems, I'm going to create more struggles and problems. Or if I focus on, I've got this great strength, creativity, and everything as well. When I'm healthy, when I'm energized,
Mm.
how can I utilize that?
Yeah.
And that is probably, as a neurodivergent musician, kind of just use that as best as we can in our life and stuff as well, and stop focusing on the weaknesses. If we can outsource our weaknesses and somehow,
Mm.
that means that we've got more dopamine and more bandwidth for
Definitely.
our strengths.
Yeah.
But that I've only know I didn't know this a year ago. I didn't know this even 6 months ago. This has
Yeah.
just been the slow, but of
Yeah.
doing this podcast, of doing whatever it is, and not storing it inside and trying to have you done a process yet where, so I've got this neurodivergent album coming out, but it is the creative outlet of what's been processing. Have you thought
Okay.
about your neurodiversity and what that sounds like in music? Yeah.
I had someone describe my music as like organized but chaotic.
Okay.
And that's how I've always described myself.
Right.
So it's funny how like the energy of that translates, from my personality. Like yeah, like I might do a riff that's like really like fast and like quite a lot of notes, and then I might go like slower, and but that's how my brain is. It's just fluctuating between different emotions and energies all the time. And that's how, and I can kind of hear that in your music as well. We both have a track called Fight or Flight.
Do we?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge part of our life, isn't it? So we've
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
gone
Well,
down the
that's why it
same.
was just like I had to write something that was based around sort of anxiety and everything as well. But oh, no way. But
Yeah.
I that's why I have to say as well. That's like when I connect with your music, I can hear the you know it's not forced. Like
Mm,
that's I think that's because a lot of music, like especially mainstream, we won't go there, but like it is very formulaic, very forced, and you can hear like it's been written for the masses of what it's got intended to, which is fine. And if they want to go, that's that, and this is my personal life. But I feel with our music and the way we've developed and stuff over time, it, we can't work like that. It's like a
mm,
facade. I can't write masked music. I can't write
yeah.
facade music. I've got to
Yeah.
write real, authentic, whatever it is I'm
Yeah.
feeling at the time, the energy that comes in at the time.
Mm,
And it sounds like actually how you were saying there, it's all kind of synergized
yeah. Like if
naturally. Anyway.
if like I used to take like requests and stuff at weddings, and it used to just like really stress me out. And then I just kind of learned like it takes 10 times as much energy for me to do that, than to write a composition and just be in
Right,
the moment
right,
and just
right.
like go with that particular energy and not force anything. And you just learn these little things over time, that like stuff like that, like I do. There's nothing wrong with covers, and like your covers are so unique, and they're so different to the original, and I think that's completely different. But when people there's kind
Just
of like that traditional fingerstyle of just playing, and I don't know,
the same thing. Yeah,
there's no
it's like they
judgment.
traced it.
There's no judgment at all. I just can't compete with that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just don't feel anything. Like um I don't know how to describe it. And I don't know. Like else to
So
do with the whole um
you've got a
I
new.
just love writing. Like it's
Sorry, there's a
who
delay, I think, in
I
the
am.
audio.
Like
That's very strange. What's the delay in the audio?
so my phone is on 3%, so the video might go off.
All right, that's
I
fine.
can grab a charger if you want.
No, that's fine. We will we'll give it the last 3%.
Okay.
You got a new album? Is it
Yeah. I forgot then.
no, that's right. So what I'll do in the episode description and stuff as well, I'll put up is the best one to put up your website?
It is on my website, yeah.
Yeah. So if
Uh
I just put the website link and stuff as well, go and check out the new album. And what's the title?
so the title is Route to Rebirth, and it
Amazing.
sounds really like I don't know. But it's just kind of the reflection of my journey of like discovering
Yeah.
that I'm autistic, and just like almost like I guess I don't know how to describe it. I just thought it was quite fitting, the title. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I will pop that into the description because I think everything we've talked about are obviously on a talking level and things as well. I feel it only gives one side of the coin
Mm,
of who you are. And I think everyone's got to go over and listen and purchase your album to hear the other side of the coin. Because I sort of feel we talk and this is where I think I personally feel more comfortable when I'm in as a musician. People hear me as a
mm,
musician, but then when they hear me talk, it's almost like two completely different characters. They don't match. I'm like,
yeah.
you don't sound like that. I'm like, yeah, but that's why we have these two mediums. And I'm like, which is we can have this authentic conversation and we get to naturally talk who we are. But actually, to hear the other side of you, I think everyone's got to go and listen to the album.
Thank you.
That's all right.
When's your album out? Did you say?
It's during ADHD Awareness Month in October, so I decided to put it. So yeah, the podcast will season 4 and this episode will drop during October. We were going to release the album earlier this year, and then we thought actually we'll take back and we'll layer it up and do more stuff as well. And I thought actually October, ADHD Awareness Month, that sounds like a perfect way to drop it, and then I'll try and do some lives. It's basically just going 1 month of intensity, which I would have done a tour, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to do a tour. Let's just do it.
How do people do that? Like, how do people release an album and then tour? It's like, I need to rest.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the odd gig here and there. Actually, I do want to put on a sort of a neurodivergent musician gig, concert, or wherever it is and stuff. So I'm going to figure that out and stuff as well. But anyway, we'll figure that out. But it's been so amazing having you on and just having a lovely conversation and stuff.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this chat.
And
yeah,
more in future, obviously. But I think for the podcast episode, everything coming out, and then we'll share it, tag you, and all that other malarkey. But if you're listening to the end of this, hopefully it's not too long, because this is what I love about these conversations as well. I realized at the end, I'm like, oh, that was an hour and a half or 2 hours. I'm like, that's such a neurodivergent conversation as well. The perfect length. But yeah, go and check out Becky's stuff. Really is special. And yeah, look forward to chatting soon, Becky.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to hear more episodes, head to your favorite podcast app or platform and search for The Neurodivergent Musician. There are lots of solo and guest episodes to dive in with insights, improvised babble, and recommendations. I also encourage you to go and check out my new album, Neurodivergent, which is how I process my whole experience from unaware to aware, from undiagnosed to diagnosed, and more through music. And finally, if you are a neurodivergent musician and looking for a community where you can unmask and be you, please do come and join in. We deliver free workshops with Q&As and more. All links are in the podcast description, or you can find out more info at johnhartmusic.com or theneuroDivergentMusician.co.uk. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Take care.